Gizondur Zangara Shirese, Bama Bimajima, Nishima, Sosurmania, Tertenjazas, Kadalamana Sovande, Omichi, Jabotane, Sanjak, Ransa Jagun, Zaba, Zavilami Shabla, Sovan, Dawson, Vilamash, Shala Jura, to get in Barchey, some Tarde, some Parash, number shoe, that around so, Ngöndro. Kasanta nima nishu ta ngarang ngodo nima nishu tawajixna nima nishu sabding giringla yore da di kanesna ngarang zo tebla tiwa shisha gi ma sharsha dentro re kanesna da digi tola ani manzo chilola geri shigi tone tanda ngazo tati ten ter kerisna yang tati mitawa 이게 미터와 시기 통행하죠 다운데 갑도 아니 탭기 앙당도야 넘버도 야마티스 미터와 송장 아니 먼저 탭라 간제 지바 당신마 아니 미마차당 따모에 데모에 시도마 샤르샤르 된거래 타이나 소소 당거도지 진두다 샨데나나레 ngöndro 제바 샤와이나양 아니 단다디나라 템나라 티바낭 신기 아니마 차장 된게 김제 칸야 말에 테나 신기 땅에 ngöndro 사우당게 콜라 다 된다도 가시지 쇼잉.
First, bring to mind the motivation of bodhicitta and listen to the teaching. So we've been practicing the preliminary practices, the Ngöndro, for about a month now. And we've been practicing according to what we have here in the book that we have provided. There are several versions of the books with different languages and different transliterations that have different page numbers. So it can be a little confusing. But I thought it would be important to talk about how we can go through the preliminary practices according to an extensive, middle length, and concise way of recitation and accumulation.
당연도들라 아니 제바당 징보당 디바당 아니 진두 현대 세기 subject 림바 당연도디 지당가랑도 당자도 싹바도 이나 당자도 싹바이나 아니 단당가랑도 다 니마 나와치기 징강라 아니 니마도 바곱시면도 코랑기 딱 가당도 사이디 다 안가도 뒤적이 단계야 말에 디체상 가서 소소다 진두 ngöndro 당가도 사이기 다 네바도 이나 ngöndro들라 림바 nga샹그로와 nga샤고라 타르빌람지 자와 잡수토와당 탐지 침빌람지 시마 장주초도 셈게 바탕 안에 겐지 간겐 득득 정와라 도르제스메 콤테당 틴지 소사발라 멘다당 안에 도르제테 바 람지 타르투 실랍람이 나조지 망아 샤운데 잠바 타티 nga랑도다 예바도이나 아니 장가 붐붐 드리바 사토그레 다디도 사와이나 단나가랑가랑조 ngöndro 아니 튀르레 라곱셰도 잠니 진실라 라마 장베 아니 긴조제데 샤람닝보 디 동샤라 소방아조 야곱셰jap데 디지미 된다 소소 되나 소소레 마드나 소소레 당가도디 당보 마리 니도네마 타마 데온디 잠바 다 캡토티 붐직당 티직체 셈제디 다 붐직당 취직체 아니 예락dimba 착당 당니 예락dimba 코랑 당마사와라 아니 착코랑 당사니 붐직당 취직체 니기 제라 아니 이갸 예바데 링보디 다 버레티니 붐직당 취직 아니 디바 엄반더 사도와 아 세디 소소 칸제 툭툭지체 니기 제라 아니 멘다 다 타마기 디바 가상아도 사이지와 어디 아니 붐직당 취직체 아니 손뎁 게바 바르지람신디 아니 장가가제 툭툭지체 아니 손뎁 디바 디숨상게 디도르제 세강 툭디 붐직당 취직그래 다 바자구루디 아니 냠바 바자구루디 붐직숨 세샤그래다 디 가레라스나 데나나 익두 중이여래 이게 중이라 아니 익두레라 장가 붐붐 가래 붐 레레 정도 그 붐진이 차기도와 다 공도 아니 몸레라 티레레레 샤게 디카레스는 가랑도 카공스는 김제스는 가랑도 다 장가 싸운데 잠바 달라 마타바다 찰라 중앙기 남민기 다 지간도지 찰라디 카데파 강에 치도 아니 야자 주지 가랑도 태바디 바사야도다 근데 차데 제가도 티레레 디디레 다 바자 구루들라 이게 두중니라 두레라 몸레레셔도 몸중니 제 아니 카공 범직신의 범직 숨차기도 와 아니 상와 레저기 안타마드 검게디 소속이 가져 툭툭지 까마카시아 카시니마나 까마카시아 카시아.
So again, there are different ways of going about doing the practice, doing the preliminary practices. We can have an extensive way, or a middle-length way, or a concise way of accumulating and going through the practice. As of now, we've been dividing up our practices based on time. So based on the amount of time that we have, we've been doing the practice every day, and we're not so much focused on the accumulation of the specific practices. But if you do want to accumulate each individual practice, according to the extensive way, there's 5 sets of accumulation. First is as we said, refuge, going for refuge, which is the root of the path to liberation. And then is the generation of bodhicitta, which is the ground of the path to omniscience. And then is the purification of misdeeds and obscurations through the recitation and visualization of Vajrasattva. There's the accumulations of merit and wisdom through offering the mandala. And then we have the ultimate path to receive the blessings of the Guru in the Vajrayana vehicle, which is Guru Yoga. So each one of these 5, in the extensive version, we accumulate 100,000 of each. And then say you're dividing your day into 4 sessions, and you would alternate prayers such as calling the Guru from afar, the sutra on the recollection of the 3 jewels, the Heart Sutra, or the Downfall Confession Prayer, etc. These are important to recite, but it's always up to you whether you do or not. So this is within the context of the extensive version of the preliminary practice. As for the number of accumulations that we do during the extensive practice of the preliminary practices, we accumulate 110,000 refuge prayers, 110,000 bodhisattva or bodhicitta prayers, and then 110,000 prostrations while reciting the 7-limb prayer. So in this section, you're accumulating the prostrations and not the liturgy, the 7-line prayer itself. For Vajrasattva, you accumulate 110,000 100-syllable mantras, and then recite as many of the concise Vajrasattva mantras as possible. Then accumulate 110,000 concise mandala offerings, and then recite the Barchey Lamsal as much as you can, and then accumulate 110,000 of the 6 Vajra line prayer, the Dusam Sangye prayer. Then we accumulate 1,300,000 Vajraguru mantras. So for each of these syllables, each one counts as 100,000. So we're adding them all up. That's 1,200,000 mantras. And then we add a supplementary or an amendment to the Vajraguru mantra, making it 1,300,000. So each of the accumulations gets an additional 10,000 added to it as a means to make up for any kinds of mistakes that we've done, if we've become distracted during the accumulation. So not just accumulating 100,000, we add, we amend, we supplement an additional 10% of the 100,000. So that's 10,000 in this case. And so for the Vajraguru mantra, we altogether it's 1,300,000, and the additional or amendment is rounded just to 100,000. So we just tack on 100,000 Vajraguru mantras to be a supplement or to be an amendment to any mistakes we make. And then for the secret activity part of the Guru Yoga, for each of the sessions, we just meditate as long as we have time for, whether that's a couple minutes or for however long one can. And so we accumulate just some time in meditation for each of the sessions.
Ngöndro dibato shabaina ani tandadi bumdigi sabtela ani tirere mashana digre tirere che ani kakondla tongda rere chedikadu tijikdang tongda chikche an baza guru di bumshi zejikda di jobo satugurako ne nima khashana satugure ta di nganangzu ta ngöndro dibato di ta chatugure.
The concise way to accumulate the preliminary practice is to accumulate 10,000 of each. And 10% of that 10,000 is 1,000. So for each one, just like we did in the extensive accumulations, we just switch it with 10,000. And then the amendment or the supplementary additional accumulations is 1,000. So it'll be 11,000 for each, and for the Vajraguru mantra we accumulate 400,000. So actually this is a very quick way to do the concise preliminary practice, and it could just maybe take a couple days to complete it.
다 된당 더부디 예바 더 덴바이나 당도 코랑기 흉디 가상가랑소 칸데 덴바 테나싱 시네마 되니 아니 다 잡도이나 심제나 장가 쪼 사엔디 다 니마지라 팅지라 간제 장가 간제 사우트도 가수로 색하시셔도 사 되네 아니 되게 죽디 되는 가서 도와나시만 교보교보만 된도야래 디 응도 예바기 도당디체.
So say that you want to do the extensive version of the preliminary practice, and so just as we've done throughout this month practicing together, that's how we would do it, and say we are accumulating specifically refuge or bodhicitta. So we would do that for the majority of our session and accumulate the numbers of those prayers specifically, and then once we've done that, we would end the session by reading through the rest of the practice rather quickly and ending the session.
당은도 다 증보도 다 가상기 탭디 덤바디반 증보 등등도 차샤와이나 다 캡토당 셈제당 예라 덤바디 다 뉘에도지 말에 다 디치디 잠바 되네 디기 제라 딜레기도와 노르지스바 곰데텔라 샥바 게바지단 뒤바지레 샥바 게바델라 루티메샤스노 투제지모 좀된 노르제스 팀에 동도 초도 송상와세 디파 마덴바시네 디파 육 드네 호투루 곰보다니 미시 몽바이 탐즈레는 간시 냠자 체크하셔지 디 때나 디게레 카스나 샥바 게바디 된거 말했다 또 증보디에 룩스셔와이나 어디체 다 디기 참네 멘다들레기도와 멘다들라 아니 가랑조 딘지는 거 신감 표조바 세디 덴바데 마덴바체 아니 멘다 순주소티마 징아조 전부 먹먹기에지와 티앙파 육니 남상 아니 멘다 디바 코랑 아홍 감순니지 반조당달레 노제케조스 트라마 상니 디바디 파 육샤나 디게레 아테나싱기다 라민 난조들라 손뎁 제디 니용데 잠바 아니 제바디 파유 아니 디바디 도르제 세강툭 디파사 디데스 파체 아니 왕렌틀라양 데니 판델라미디 판데 라미 옴라 소카르본데 다게 지로 딘데 봄비 왕 톱세 스링버지도 와 디파 육니 남상 Pandelami Kui Neshina Osrachuan Dagi Neshiri Timse Telam Sampa Teni and Lamsam Com Janati Tadi and Tap de Ore Kazinata in Demba de la Gedini on Zuzazo Jeba Shapa Jeba de Payu Menda Jeba de Payu Wanen Jeba de Payu Sundep Java de Pa Yung the Didi Bantembadi, Jobo Sato Garati, Tadi, and Dingbo, and Diego Sore, Tachiranzo, Ani Ngöndro Jeba, Bumishanare, Tishanare, that Demba Dendanta would the Kiran and Jebo Dendan di Kana, Jebo Nashite, and Dingbo di Kana, Dingbo Nisinashi, Sushana degree.
If we want to do a medium length version of the practice, then refuge, bodhicitta, and the 7-limb prayer are all the same. There's no more concise way to do those. So we would do it just like we would do in the extensive practice. For Vajrasattva, however, there's the extensive and concise confession prayers that we have. So instead of doing the extensive prayer, the Rudra Mesha, we would skip that and go straight to the concise prayer that we have towards the end. Then for the mandala prayer, or mandala offering, we would recite the front visualization and then skip the extensive mandala offering and go straight to the concise mandala offering and then accumulate that. Then for the Guru Yoga, we would skip the extensive supplication, the Barchey Lamsa, and accumulate the 6-line prayer, the Dusam Sangye prayer. And then during the empowerment section, we would skip the longer description that we have. We have first the very short 4 lines, and then there's a description, a longer prose section. So we would skip that longer prose section and just recite the 4 short lines from the terma to receive the empowerments, and then we can practice meditation after that. So again, the only thing that we're changing is we're skipping the extensive confession prayer in the Vajrasattva, the extensive mandala offering, and the longer prose section of the empowerment section. So this is a very convenient way to practice the Ngöndro as well, and you can either accumulate 10,000 each, or you could accumulate 100,000 each, depending on your preference or what you plan to do. And you can use this way of going through the text in a medium length style.
Ta dinane disho dawudi tangendo nane disho dawudi ta kharedasna ta tugu je rimboche ki ta di konangi ta dershung guru rimboche sungtine ane zungendo dibaji yare ta di rimboche khala gongresna tingsangi tizela mi mangboji ane ta chiloki ta lega ta legungi lega re khan sowa jadangi lega mangboji hyozang lega 대양 육나마디 등어도 대양 지게 된데기 다 김zel라 된 림보치게 되니 진실로 명망보 지라 내가 망보 들라 망보 얘기해 되돌라 공니 고돌라 답되오지 아니 구르림보치게 숭 도르지디 dershung코랑에 추니니 아니 ngendo 디바지야레 다티 등상 개이 망보 털라 파다 전문 망보라 파 캡데레 ngendo 디바 나신데다 디쇼디 디레 디기 돈에다 걔랑 다 차가도 싸완데 가도 예락도 마메데 가도 잡도당 semje 차라야래 딜라 아니 지랑도 차가도 싸 아니 멘다다 아니 노르지스바 검데다 라민 나주르죠 거랑거랑라 샤샤래야래 대난지진이 당근도 디슈도 디 차도야래.
And there's an even more concise way of practicing the preliminary practices. Tulku Organ Rinpoche himself arranged a very concise Ngöndro, because there were many people that wanted to practice it, but they have work, they have jobs, they had very busy lives, and they can't just abandon that all to accumulate the preliminary practices. So with that in mind, Tulku Organ Rinpoche arranged a very convenient way to practice the preliminaries with liturgy coming directly from Guru Rinpoche's terma. And it's become quite popular. It's kind of spread as a very convenient and popular way of doing the preliminary practices. So in this, refuge, bodhicitta, and prostrations, without the 7-line prayer, or 7-limb prayer, are all together in one. So those 3 practices are all combined into one. And then there are concise versions of the Vajrasattva, Mandala, and Guru Yoga.
다 되게 ngöndro jeba dang jingbo dang dibo diba dindang dikola da shusar 다 kasi 소속이 장가도 마삭바 다 부미양 마사 티양 마사 진두 소소 다 마차바도 지 칸데도지 지역이 대바도이나 아니 걔랑 고네마 다 된데 jeba dang jingbo diba 카레 지나야한테 강네 마샤라 샤르샤마테 캡도 사라 숨데 semje 사라 숨데 야라dim바 사라 숨데 안디젤라 이게데 사르카시에도 오지 마데 아니 멘다 디와디 사르카시지다 에마데 아니 라민 난조르데 게디 카데시나 제가 인도 아니 nga이던당 ngen도 예바 된당단 딩보 된당단 디바 된다르바 숨디케랑 카레 숨나 가바도 대 걔랑 즉 장가 마삭 바신 이말 딱 봐라 지 칸데도 오지 시니마 아니 디즈 동바직다 가공 칸데 디즈 동바주 딘데지다 마다 인도 마차가 바시 안 된다고 지 나나양 리양 걔랑 주다 디즈 메게라 디코체도게래.
So that's the explanation of the extensive, middling, and concise ways of going about the practice of the Ngöndro. Say you're not worried about accumulating, not worried about accumulating each of the individual practices, but you want to just do the Ngöndro every day. So you just want to do the Ngöndro every day without break. You can practice. That's totally okay. You can practice in the style of the extensive style, the middling style, the concise style, however you want. Say you would just do it that you would start your session and you would do 3 refuge prayers. You recite the bodhicitta 3 times, and then you would do the 7-limb prayer 3 times. Then you would do a couple 100-syllable mantras, a couple mandala offerings, concise mandala offerings. And then you do the Guru Yoga in whatever style you want, extensive, middling, or concise, whatever you're comfortable with. And so doing this every day, you're not accumulating the individual practices themselves, but you're doing it without break. You're continuing the practice every day. And so this is helpful. This is something that might be beneficial for those that don't have a lot of time to do the accumulations but want to keep up the practice every day. That's totally fine as well.
다 근데 송장 당가랑 저 치료라 다 미망버지 디 소와자고레 아니 소소기다 낭미기 레가레 소와자당레 레공기 레가레 강다르게 미지기 도나 레가 망버지 여당 아니 ngöndro 예버 붐단 딩보 치당도 아니 샤투베기 디제도 메겐 티조 아니 진두 저랑 ngöndro 향나 딩보디 향나 두 제림버제 제샤조기 디바디 진두 카디 이나양 마르콘 티제 칸데 동바지 나나양 당 샹데 낭 툼나 안티게 아니 밀리 텐당 저바지 차두게레 아니 저랑디 다 뎀바디 덴티 잠바 인시 민지 저랑 셔강도 오지 금바도 오지 나라 인지 미지 랭게 김제 가야 말에 저랑 가지 디데 약쇼 도디 쇼왕아원 야랑네 덴티당 아니 고모마 마냥을란 디에디 저랑 디지 약쇼레 드네양 장 내에메도 가시 하나나 반로고에나 저랑 디 저랑 레군나나 때나데 그래 총강나나 때나데 그래 모다나나 때나데 그래 도르드나 산제기 숭세디 사제 딜라치 초그레 사제 딜라치 초그 말했으메와 랍충나니 소소기다 캄발라 틴당 서도지 두리 약보치는 데니 아니 제바다 샴미치네 아니 틴데 땅 가시 메바이나 저랑데 레궁다 레가 치사다 총강다 가와 이나양 장 지랑기다 예와단 등보 대오때 가데 로라 파바디 기누 마차바지 든 마칸다 karma chu chenga ani chuji chega ani chuji chik tende nala ani chirang ma chatu gere ti jindu ma chaba doji ani shande nang thumna dia ani phamba chimbore.
And so it's also true that many people that live in the world have a lot of work, they have family to take care of, children to take care of, they're quite busy. And say whether they're accumulating the 100,000 accumulations or the 10,000 accumulations via the extensive, middle length, or concise, or Tukdrub Rinpoche's very concise preliminary practice styles, you can do this whenever you're free. You don't have to worry about doing it at a specific time, but whenever you're free, whether it's easier to do it in the morning or later at night before bed, to recite the practice, to do whatever accumulations you've decided to do. You don't have to, you can do it whenever you have free time. That's totally fine. You can also do it wherever it is convenient. There's nothing that says, there's no text in the Buddha Dharma that says you have to do it in a shrine room, or you have to go to a monastery or something like that, or a temple to do your practice. You can do it wherever is most convenient. That could be in the office, that can be when you're working at the store, when you have free time in the store, it can be on the way to work or in a taxi. There's no specific time or place that you have to do the practice. It's always good to do it at home, at your convenience. Say you have a shrine room where you would do your practice mainly. You would get up, say in the morning, make offerings, and then do your session. But there's nothing saying that you have to do it that way. Wherever you can, whether it's just for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, and enough time to either complete the extensive, middling, or concise versions of the practice is fine. But the most important thing is to find a time and place where you can do it every day, that you're continuing the practice every day without break. If you do that, it's extremely beneficial. It's very helpful for you and for your practice to keep up the practice every day without interruption.
다 진두 ngaranzo samge de kharere sina da jindu midakpa sejidwa midakpade yangse yansu tegore midakpade gili kunni khansina ta ngabar ngaranzo jaja ja khante chana yang kana nga jaja ja ngabar chige jini shiwala tukdugre 당아도 치와 세대갑도 나도 체마 라마 남아게 체시앙도 갑도 아니 치와 미닥바레 코르와 둥아레세 둥아기 꼬르짱 시에되면도 약보당 상버지 시라 시기 말망제 두자장 시에되 그래 대간스나 코르와 코랑기 낭수도데 내수디 이제 둥아지랑 시리 미닥바랑 시리 대인발라 인바다도 파 사샤망보 챤나 아니 코르와디 미닥베랑 싱디 아니 길라게 미닥바 망보지 겁나 아니 디기 전ning 아랑도 다직 내중도 지니 계랑들이 다 체지 두고 삼박 로직 계그러면도 계랑 기보 땅고래 약보 시고래 드네장 약보장 상보장 시야샤남 계랑 체 두비에게 삼로데 깨기 말해 드네기 남ing 말라 방맹알라 타마 디미즈는 똥셀라 도니 아니 다 소소 잠불은 소소 차장 잠불은 차장 미치기 락도 있나요 타마디 계랑기 드네 아니 강식양 그랑 부sam지양 다 구루하며 와라 타만나주 소소 수보디양 다 제버장 수보디양 유니 다 참을 그래 다 치와라 랩도 그래 디디 세디잠바 나랑조 다디 치와미다 바디 인두군 아니 나랑조 등상 되절라다 가르스나 윤노로 론제 아니 빈자 파마 부두 망버지라가도 여래데 계랑 치위값도 시위값도 계랑라 파마기양 장라 펜토기 말해라 계나 윤노로 논제 빠도 몇번 전부는 차단 계랑라도 있나요 드랑게 장라 심소 땅토기 말해 계랑라 촉보당 촉모당 가워당 아니 니와 가래먹 가래이나야 탐제 그냥 시위값도 저서 차단 그 그냥라 심소 땅 두고 말에 루 두고 말에 계란 집어 도주리면도 현다 탑시에 강지여 말에 드대 세상 아랑도 진두 그랑 다시 님은 인강 맞추나야 니 말을 나다 주제래래 야만의 주제 체가 깔마 주장아 텐데 지기 돈에 아니 미닥바 길라꿀 장주스나 로 샤니 아니 개비자와 아니 템부 텐데기다 소소 간세 툭툭지 지양 태양 정에 제순지 저와 샘제 탐바 내시카레 듣고에나야 대체랑기 비탁보지체 아니 제위 제들라 계랑기 아니 가격지선 저 탐지기 텐두 아니 개비자와 대송상제 탐지 지다른 거와 대나시 거와다나 계랑기 아니 미지 니마레레라 아니 개비자와 아니 그래래 인연스는 듣는 계랑라 아니 치마 치비갑도 아니 쿠르규딘 리어르면도 셴다 쿠르게데 가르스나다 게와데당 닉바데면도 셴직가로 간지요 말에 등아랑서 수단 게 쓴다 시작해 차대래.
So along with focusing on the preliminary practices, there's also certain things that we should always keep in mind in general when we're practicing the Dharma. For example, we always need to reflect and recollect impermanence. It's 100% that we're going to die. 100% sure that one day we will meet with our death. And that's why so many of our teachers constantly talk about this, constantly talk about death, the truth of impermanence, that the nature of samsara is suffering. They're always talking about these rather negative things or things that might kind of be disturbing to us. So why? Why don't they talk about all the positive things of life? Well, they talk about these things mostly because there's the way things are, and then there's the way things appear. The nature of samsara, the way that it is the nature of suffering. We have to constantly reflect on the nature of things, what things are. We have to come to terms and habituate or familiarize ourselves with the nature of what things are. And in this example, samsara is impermanent. It's always changing. This is the way it is. And if we really reflect on this and familiarize ourselves with this, and it becomes a habit to think in this way, then we'll naturally give rise to renunciation, a weariness towards samsara. And the natural thought that will rise from that is, I must practice the Dharma. That's why our teachers are not telling us, saying, oh, have fun, only think about the nice things. If they did, we would never give rise to the thought that we should actually practice the Dharma. That thought would never come to mind. And then if we don't give rise to renunciation, then we spend the majority of our life completely distracted. And in our final moments before death, even if we have the entire, all of the power in the world in our hands, it can do nothing for us at that time. No matter how much money or power we have, we can't bring a hair of it with us throughout our death process. And after dying, we can't bring anything, any power or money or wealth with us. And also, this very body that we have to get rid of. We're gonna leave it as well. So we can't even take that with us. So at that time, death has arrived. And no matter how much money, family, all the children that we have when we're dying, they can't help us. Our parents can't help us. The money and power that we have can't put our minds to ease. Our friends or partners, we can't bring them with us to help us, to console us. So it's extremely important to remember impermanence, to remember that we will die. It's 100% sure that we will die. And if we don't think about this all day long, of course it's difficult to do something like that, but at least every day for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we really consider and reflect on this truth. Not only that, we give rise to bodhicitta. We call this pure motivation of bodhicitta. And that whatever merit we collect through practicing every day, we dedicate that. And so there's the preliminary, the main part, and the conclusion. The preliminary is to generate bodhicitta. And then the main part is to really have a good quality of practice during the main session. And then the conclusion is to dedicate any merit that we've accumulated to the benefit of all sentient beings in the same manner that all of the Buddhas of the 3 times have dedicated their merit to the benefit of sentient beings. And so that merit that we accumulate every day over the remaining days that we have before our death, that's what we get to bring with us. That's what we can use at the time of death that will be beneficial for us at the time of death. Because it said the only thing that we can bring with us during this death process and throughout the death process is our merit and our non-virtue. Those two things those are the only things that we can bring with us: our misdeeds and virtue accumulated through the Dharma.
Tinte songdam, da ngaranzo jindu tempa seti pe misikhan shochare. Tempa seti karasana, kirang la chigi kurmade pe misipeng todu kare. Pechana semna la shedang shimboji, kiyongwe tize tila, oho, da shedang digi, ani nganyawa la pen dogere, korwa la pen dogere, Tiki, I think Rangshen Nila Netogere, Sne Digi Sabdal Lamsang, Changjuji Simji, Gom. Ya, Karanzo, Seba Gomgore, Seba Gomba Chebala, Yu Simjengi, and Seba Gomsaki, Yu Demen, Seba Sunagum Tede, Shedikadu, Dordana Kerangi, Gindu Tenshi, Payaki Tone. Kandang Kang, and Deja Shendamunga Tato Kare, Genaya, Tiki, Gema Tato, Lansa, Tempatigo, or Tadiki, and a Korwala Kiakin, Jude, Tingachan, and Digimitu, Samba Tinde, Gidu, Tempati, Janet, and Tinam, Shila Kerangi, Tempati, Yarjan Doni. Oh, the Yarjan Doni, and Shedan Gema Tato Lamsan Tempale. Oh, Tato Gema Tam the Lamsan Tempale on the Gadu Kerangi, Tempati, Yanse, and Gila Jartuna. 아니 kerangi dikpa chimboji chewiki 아니 samloji leon de kaptu lamsang tigi tabda kerang lamsang tempa de lamsa leon de kaptu dikpa de la kyang dok tupgerela shedang kaptu chewi kaptu kerang shedang ngaja deja sheta de ngaja thada khoroje dikaptu kyang tempa de leon de kaptu kerangi de thungadi khurang samedu masonayang thungadi godima nedu ni niwa de chadu kare tinde chasang arang tempa de kindu semla ani komshi tangadi kanchimo chadu kare.
Another really important factor is to have mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? In this context, it's the reminder to practice the Dharma. For example, if we get angry, we immediately are reminded that, oh, this anger is very dangerous. It can easily send me to the hell realms. It can bring me back to samsara. It brings all the conditions for samsaric existence. Not only that, it hurts myself and it hurts others, so I have to practice patience. And so we reflect on this. We have the mindfulness to bring up these kinds of thoughts, these beneficial thoughts that accord with the Dharma. For example, if there are no sentient beings, how can we practice patience? And so when anger comes, we immediately have this habit of being alert and being weary of these certain afflictions. So it's always important to have mindfulness, to keep a sense of alertness, and to have carefulness. These three are important to constantly try to cultivate. Because afflictions such as ignorance, desire, anger, pride, and jealousy, they can come up at any time, and with mindfulness right there, we can say, oh, this is the cause for samsara. This is not good to have these kinds of afflictions. I should be careful. And then slowly, our mindfulness itself will become more strong. It'll grow in strength and improve as our practice improves. And so over time, right when anger arises, we know what's happening. Right when jealousy arises, we know exactly what's happening. And then we directly apply the antidote. We directly apply mindfulness to that affliction, so that when a really strong emotion comes up, something that would normally be too overpowering, too strong to negate or avert, we have this built-up strength of mindfulness that we can use that mindfulness to avert the affliction, avert that strong habit of anger, desire, jealousy, what have you. So with whatever of the 5 poisons arise, we learn to cultivate this awareness, this mindfulness, or this reflection about the dangers of the affliction and how to apply the antidotes. So not only that we can avert the antidotes, we can overcome them. We can overpower those afflictions.
다 저디 근데 진짜 드링 진짜 쉬어야 되는 거지. 당가랑 저 디깅도 다 니마 숨기 제라 아니 사토가래. 니슈가 다 칸도마게 티진들라 아니 나랑서 쇼가 ngöndro 데마 샤레지 된 루그래. 아니 티니바텔라 아니 구루름 버시기 아니 틸렌디와 틸렌닝보기 통내 속세지 푸두그래 아니 계랑도 단당 안소 냠보 아니 대화 얘기 아니 ngöndro 땅되게 해서 되게 닝디 아니 계랑도라 빼자야나 약쇼래 빼자면나야 티닝디 계랑속이다 즉 제바로지 때즉바 최shum도 드레나 제바직 샴 최shum 가세면나야 바 조서도 되지 강라 구송투 된게 딜라 아니 계랑속이다 치매라 연잡라 소바다 만도라 소바다 신도라 소바 릭시 드레지 바 아니 제바지 분야는 나랑도 덴바디 가서 된도 그래 드레 계랑도 드레기 통내 아니 바 죽디 꺄나 근데 진짜 아니 마음발라다 디깅도 되고라 다 하마고와 도당 된당도 되게 가래 지난 속에다 마캔바다 마고바 되리나 나가 나랑기다 lumba기 같이 듣게 되면 되신다 다 lum바신다 깨시 말에 티체자 캐랑도 깨주리야래 소수 lum바면 되와 되리라 아니 나라 티바당난 되게 야만나 타바신다 되게 티바당난 되게 근데 송장 되게 스파슈인 아니 트린시팅 제점 직만도다 액션다 슈에스면도.
So that's the main topic of this teaching. As for the schedule, our last day is going to be on the 25th, which is Dakini Day. The morning session will be normal, as we always do, a normal preliminary practice session. In the second session, we will offer tsok through the practice of the Chinlei Ningpo. It's a concise practice from Guru Rinpoche. And using that text, we will offer tsok. So it's good if you have the text that we can recite it together. If you don't, it's still good to make some kind of offering where you in your shrine room if you have it, or just in front of representations of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas. You can offer lamps, flowers, clean water, as you might normally do. That's also sufficient. So we'll be doing that, and we'll recite through the text and offer tsok in the second session. Furthermore, if there are any questions, if you don't understand something, if you have doubts about something, you can always ask me. Of course, I don't speak a good Nepali, so it's good to, or English for that matter, it's good to have a translator, or you can bring another monk to help translate.
다 강다라 ngöndro 예바당 딩보당 디바디 네 장nom발라 사워 시송아 겐스나 예바 된당디 당아도 붐붐체 딩보디 티르와 아니 디바디 두지면 간다디 덴바디 가래 때나양 베자 코랑 돈에 안 예바 드에라 베자 코랑 돈에 딩보 드에레 베자 코랑 돈에 디바 드에레 예바디 가상 아주 때만 하시래 딩보디 네탄다 시바나 신기 아니 캡토 셈제도 다 연락되마다 장자래라 아니 디기강라 이겨도디 베샤바샤나 아니 샥반 예바디 루디메샤 샥반 예바디 파 육니 디바디 파 된도야레 아니 멘타 갑도 멘타 산데기 딘도 남기인라 멘타 산답지와 랑 딘지 남가 신간 표소 파세 디 덴바데 마덴바체 남산 깨지그 딘지 남가라 소신테 파 사람 답니 남산 멘타 디바디 오만 감수되지 남산 드라나 마주나 그래 야마나 디가라 오만 다단타야 심제스는 디바 니드도 난데 그래 되네 라면 나주르가도 양전하시래 손대 예바디 때는 배미서 지답신 바로 그러는 거지 송그래 대마도나야 아니 손대 디바 세강 주바디체 아니 오기 왕낸 예바디 파 토르니 반델라미 꾸이 내신에 왕낸 디바디 신에 텐데신 아니 만저릉네 예숨기 통에 다파 휴게당 된다 남바긴둥에 된다 시원하지 텐시에 봐야 치에드나 직체 다 쇼가야 당위 티즈갑도야 당아 기조숨기 투제 다 자빌라마 투제 텐데기 통에 저랑 야 다 가르사 야 저는 두지가 등가 이 세송 다 드링기 니만들라 ngay 링가 예순기 돈에 심지기 대강 툭툭지겨와 강 툭툭지 치고 대바 가제 툭툭지 막 빵고 삼바직당 아니 공다마 냐위 티즈들라냐 니마 테닝들라 저랑기 메게윈 대바 강당 강래 셔도 대당에 노르샤 투니샤 톨로샤 진짜 대낭신기 대바 제와 마주지 삼바기 로제니 로창주 섬라 로샤니 파 냐와 로 아니 미다발라 로샤니 냐와 야마나 라마 닝갈라 당니 아니 냐당 룩섬 몽보제레.
And so, in summary, let's briefly restate what we talked about in this session. There's the extensive, middling, and concise ways of reading through the practice. There's the more extensive way of accumulating through 100,000 each, or a medium length, a medium accumulation of 10,000. And there's also this concise version that Tukdrub Rinpoche arranged. And so, whatever you want to do, whatever you have an interest to do according to the text, do according to how we discussed in this session. For example, the extensive version is what we've been doing all the while, and then the middling session, the middling style of doing the Ngöndro practice is that the only difference would be in the Vajrasattva, we would exclude the longer Rudra Meshak confession. In the mandala section, we would first visualize the front visualization, and then we would we would skip the extensive mandala offering, and after that there's two concise. One's a little bit more longer, and then there's the final one that we're doing the accumulations with. You can do either of those, but you would do the accumulation as you would in the extensive with the concise, the most concise mandala offering. And then in the Guru Yoga, we would skip the Barchey Lamsel prayer. But again, this prayer is extremely precious, spoken by Guru Rinpoche himself, holds a lot of blessings. But in the middling, or the middle length way of going through the practice, we would skip that and go straight to the Dusum Sangye prayer, the 6 Vajra line prayer, and accumulate that. And then in the empowerment section, we would skip the prose, the longer prose section, and go straight to the concise visualization, or 4-line visualization for the empowerment. So you would do that. All the while, as again to summarize, the preparation, the main part and the conclusion, these are completely necessary components of the practice that we really need to keep in mind. The preparatory stages being generating bodhicitta. Throughout the main practice, we try to have a very diligent, very high quality of practice, and then the conclusion being to dedicate that merit to the benefit of sentient beings. And then again, as I added, mindfulness, alertness or vigilance, and carefulness are very important factors that we should try to continue throughout our day. Then for the morning, when we're getting up in the morning, it's good to remember the kindness of the 3 jewels, or remember the kindness of your Guru when you're waking up. Thinking, today I will do only virtuous things. Through my body, speech, and mind, I will do as much as I can, or as best as I can, to help others, to benefit others, and to accumulate virtue. And I will do my best to abandon, as best I can, all non-virtue or misdeeds. Do that as best as I can. And then when going to sleep, reflect on the day. How did you do? If say, oh, I did this misdeed, or I did this kind of non-virtuous thing, recognize it, acknowledge it, and then confess it, and make the pledge, or supplicate that that you will not do that again in the future. Kind of make the commitment to set aside that non-virtue in the next day and onward. And then with either bodhicitta, fall asleep, or with a recollecting impermanence fall asleep, or as we talked about in length, visualizing your guru in your heart, then going to sleep is a good way to end the day.
다양 깨져도 마마로 마르도 당에 예 지난발에 쉬지라 다 긴두 소소라 인담기 다 직도지 신나 약보열에 tenge도 가르스나 소소 인담 세디 타지도 인담 디코나서야 말 소소 칼리 대바체도 그래서나다 상제 딱저기 덤바 시작해도 봐 상제 줌된데 긴두 계란기다 직태낭신기 계란기다 소나 사와다 바다 나사와 양만나 공부 오바메 라 아니 계란 오바면 하시 계란 인담라 샤니 진두 오바말라 소바다베당 오바메기 아니 곰데시에당 양만나 파바제레시 라 양나나 아니 지진들마 잠비 양라 소바기 구루름 버쳐라 소바기 돈나 인담기 사바도면 바제레 시와다 토바도면 바제레 저다 탐제기 소소 강라 메바디 계란기 아니 곰데도 식들라 소바다 디기다 이지 나도데 사니디앙 저릉에 제 숨직든데 진두 셈나라 인담지 셈나 샤네 디치투바이나 안케랑 치비갑도양 디텐토글라 아니 바르돌라 탐비갑도양 아니 인담데 태용나 인담데 기창라 람디 파 당토그제 티나 인담세디 아니 디 상아레 디 마상와레 디 토워레 디 토워 시와레 스티 말에 도르드나 상제 탐제기 아니 에라 아니 포당 모당 안 토워당 시와세지 야마레데 심제 눈지 응올라 아니 토워당 시와당 포목이 남바디 나한테레 배차스나 마랑 속이 리든 딜라 아니 생각마기 레기 편박이 되니 개와 포당 모세기 켜버직도지 켜버제 말을 요래만도 대응어마코랑 셈코랑기 친이 내루걸라 시타 시와 토워기 켜버야 말라 포당 먹이 이와 해 말에 셈코랑기 친이 내루코랑라 대메바 신드 아니 상제 탐제라 포당 모당 시와 초세기 랑신지 투바제 말 노르드나 상제 탐제기 투제 강라 강dun기 돈을 잡아기 돈에 아니 인담라양 아니 포목이 남바당 시작이 냠바제 나시 샤르마도 대응어말라 아니 상제 탐제 최고 이시길롱도 아니 고랑 로직 송장 대달라 텐데기다 가나서 피나시 포목이 이와티 양말에 심지가 눈지 올라래 대나신 계란기다 인담 카레 오바메 때나래 제레스 때나래 카레 때나야 오바메지 계란 두바이나야 상제 탐제 팅하는 조대래 파바 제레스도지 계란 인담들은 dum나야 상제 탐제 팅하는 조대래 지준도 말은 구루름 버제 계란 람직 오바메도지 dum니 티기 돈에 계란 람 타리 람 토바이나야 양 상제 현다 직라 dum니 그냥 람 싸고 말해 그래서나 그 인담 디기톤에 아니 곰대기 톤에 저랑 내가 지치도 뒤잡아 상계 탐제 디가랑 조대래 다 자와수미나래 아니 구수미나스 디가랑 조대래 딜레 디상와면도 딜레 야가면도 삼바기 로기 아니 송승기 남도디 상신의 망보마제바 로다 식라 딘니 아니 강당 강 냠술람바야나야 디 미다방의 기군 로스 창수선나 셈 예상니 야 상제라 대바 마리 죽심제 탐제라 닝제 발라 치도나나 탐 넘바라 통네 송니 틴다 넘바 낀도 태시 바야기 통네 아니 메시지 파 갸tum나 메시지 텐단 대바담 아니 치마나야 디펜도 그레스 쉐인.
So as I've been talking, there's more things that are coming to mind. So it's important to have an idam, and so your idam, your deity that you're practicing can be whatever idam you're interested in, whatever you have a natural inclination towards. It can be Guru Rinpoche, it can be the Buddha Shakyamuni, Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, Tara, Manjushri. There's so many deities to choose from. And essentially you would supplicate that deity and recite their mantra, and to and couch that within the preparatory phase, the main practice, and the conclusion. Why this is so important is that at the time of death, when you find yourself in the bardo, through having a connection with this deity, that deity will arise, will appear to you and be able to guide you throughout through the bardo. So it's a very important connection to make a deity in this lifetime and to practice through the visualization and the recitation of that deity's mantra. And again, there are so many kinds of idams. There's wrathful idams, peaceful idams, semi-wrathful idams. There's male idams and female idams. However, the essence of all of those idams individually, transcends all of the different kinds of characteristics of wrathful, peaceful, male, female. Because the nature of all those idams is none other than the Buddha's nature. And the Buddha's nature is completely beyond all categories of peaceful, wrathful, male, female, etc. It's only that the deities, according to the propensities, to the characteristics, to the likes and dislikes of individual beings, that they arise as in different forms. They arise as wrathful or peaceful, only to meet the needs of sentient beings. Just like due to our own karma and our past, we took different forms. Due to our karma, we took the form of a man, or we took the form of a woman, with our different personalities and different interests and likes and dislikes. But our essence, the very ground of our being, completely transcends all categories of male, female, whether we're rather peaceful or wrathful personalities. The essence of our being, the nature of the mind, transcends all of those characteristics. And so in the same way, all of the Buddhas are not essentially male or female, wrathful or peaceful, but arise in such forms in order to meet the needs of beings and to be able to benefit beings in whatever way is necessary. And so these idams, the idam does not ever waver from the single taste of Dharmakaya's wisdom expanse, in which there's no difference between male and female, etc. So again, your own deity is like that, in that all the Buddhas, all the qualities, all the wisdom, the love and compassion of all the Buddhas is inherent in each one of the deities, whether it be Amitabha or Chenrezig. The outer appearance might be different, but the essential nature is exactly the same. There's no difference. So that means you don't need all different kinds of idams for different purposes. One deity, through reciting their mantra, through their visualization and reciting of their mantra, can lead you to the end of the path, any one of those deities. So you don't need to have many deities to serve different purposes. You don't need to think, oh, this deity is better than this deity, this deity is not as good for this purpose, this deity is better for this purpose, etc. No, the three jewels, the three roots, and the three kayas are all condensed within each one of the deities. So it's with this confidence in mind that one chooses an idam, recites their mantra, or visualizes that deity as the very nature of all of the Buddhas of the three times. And then, so for example, a practice would be to recollect impermanence, to give rise to bodhicitta, to have strong faith in the Buddhas, to generate compassion for beings, for sentient beings, and then have pure perception towards Dharma friends, brothers and sisters. Always maintain this mindfulness, alertness, and carefulness. And practice whatever practice you have in mind that you're interested in. And so if you do this throughout the entirety of your life, this will be of a great benefit, not only during the time of death, but be of extraordinary benefit in the next life to come.
Bolado baya sebe solando wando bara sho chanjo simjo remboje maje banaji ke banya ba me bayan konna kondo pero bara sho temba jikten kamse chemba da temba ni shintus tenjon bolo darjin je bayan temba yore nebe dashi sho